Welcome back to Bachman's Basement, where we dust off the darker side of the King multiverse. I'm your host, Chris Clawson, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Chris Patton. Today, we're looking at the novel Later. It's got a bunch of The Shining, some ties to It, and a twist that leaves even the most seasoned constant readers reeling. They say the dead have no secrets, and as you'll discover, therein lies the problem. In a world where seeing the dead isn't a gift, but a liability, King reminds us some things are better left buried. So grab a drink, lock the door, and let's talk about the kid who saw too much and the adults who took advantage of it. But before we begin, how's your week been, Chris?
Oh, it's been a week, man. This is like what the third time we've tried this. Weather in Georgia has been kind of crazy the past 2 weekends, and then we didn't lose power at all during any of the ice storms or anything. And then for whatever reason, this week I've had all sorts of issues with Georgia Power. I don't know if they have like a transformer going down or what, but like we literally tried to do this last night. we get this far into the show basically, and I'm like, yeah, we got lucky. We didn't lose power during it, and then click.
Yeah, just right in the middle, just nothing.
So that's what I get for talking, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can't control the weather and the way it affects things. But what you been watching, what you been listening to, what you been playing?
I finished up 1000X Resist. I think I talked about that on last week's show, but it is wonderful. A wonderful piece of science fiction writing, probably the best I've played or even watched in a long time. I highly recommend it to anyone out there that's looking for a fun, kind of a newer sci-fi story, something that hasn't been done to death. As far as like gameplay and everything, I mean, it's a little light. There's not like huge combat or action in the game. It is more about exploration and discovering a story. And in that, it pays off in spades. It's great. It's wonderful. And then as far as something I watched The Anniversary, which is a dystopian political thriller, and it stars Diane Lane and Kyle Chandler, who was Coach from Friday Night Lights. For those who's not just familiar with the name right offhand, but it is a kind of a crazy story. It's about this couple and their 3 children. They're celebrating the couple's, their mom and dad's, which Diane Lane and Kyle Chandler's 25th anniversary, and the brother brings home a girlfriend. He's kind of a failed writer. He's become an editor. And she's very, very far right leaning and has kind of convinced the son of some of her ideology. They end up getting married, and she's pregnant, and they have a kid together, and she becomes this crazy political figure as far as writing goes. And then he ends up running for office with a lot of her ideology. And it's kind of about the left and right and the collapse of political society and everything that leads, and how this family kind of has to deal with it because they don't want to just be out of their son's life and their grandchild's life. And it like I said, it is a thriller. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in it, but it's it'll take you on a wild ride. It is definitely a very uncomfortable movie. Something that I personally kind of made me scared a little bit. I was like, I don't know, man. That's like, there might be a real world going on. I was
gonna say, they say art imitates life, so I mean that's certainly it's scary with the world we live in today. You know that nobody seems to be on the same frequency anymore, and that makes it really hard. So I mean that's definitely a movie I'm going to check out for sure. You know, I'm always interested in challenging cinema, so that sounds like a good one. For sure.
Yeah, it's a wild ride for sure. Even in the entire build up to the finale of it, you just kind of are on the edge of your seat. So it definitely lives up to being a thriller. I will say that, but it's one that I didn't really hear anything about. I just happened across it and saw Coach from Friday Night Lights, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna give this a watch. Whatever, that'll be good."
Yeah.
Without knowing anything about it and like watching the trailer, the trailer doesn't really give anything away either. So nice. I was not locked in ready to watch this. So kind of a jaw dropping experience for me.
Nice. Well, I think even though now I know more than you did going into it, I think I will give it a go too uh, here pretty soon. Uh, I guess for anyone that's been listening to our podcast, uh, you may have heard that I was trying to complete GTA 5 and I kept kind of putting it off and putting it off. And then finally, I just sat down this week and I just knocked it out. And so I finished with GTA 5 and I loved it. And I should have done it 13 years ago, like everyone else, but I did it. So,
He finished it and then immediately sent me a screen capture of it being finished, I guess, so there would be no question on whether it was finished or not.
right.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I chose C, and then after I was done with the game, I went on YouTube and watched the other choices, and I'm like, oh man, I wouldn't have chosen those choices anyway because I liked the characters, even though they're horrible people, all of them really. Still, playing one of those characters, you don't want to kill your buddies, So watching those alternative endings are just dark, man. I don't know if you've seen the alternative endings, but man, it messes up the after story game in a way that's like irreversible. Like you lose ties with people because of some of those choices if you don't go the route of sticking with your comrades.
Yeah, it's one of those where I've always, every time I've played through the game, I always end up picking the keep everybody option.
Yeah.
One, because I think it makes the end of the game more fun to play through. And two, the only real benefit of choosing any of the other endings is the different cutscene, and you walk away with more money. So
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of and the thing is like they may have fixed it by now. Like, it's been a while. Not a while since I played through it, but a while since I played through it, saying like, oh, after I finish this story, I'm gonna go and buy all the properties and all that jazz. But you could usually just get through. I mean, you can get all the money you ever needed just by playing the stock market with Franklin in the assassination mission. So I just never felt the need to play every one of those endings. So I kind of just did the same thing, finished it, and was like, all right, let's go see what the rest of these are about. The crazy thing about 1,000X Resist, I heard that there's like, I don't know, like 10 or 15 endings or something that you can get based on your decisions in that game. So I'm going to have to watch a lot of that on YouTube as far as recently completed games.
Heck yeah. I think when eventually GTA 6 comes out, it makes me wonder now if they know that people like the choice, sort of like the veering path at the end, and if they'll give even more choices to the end of that game.
I would almost prefer it, depending on what they do, because it seems like they're not going. It didn't seem like, based on all the stuff that we've seen so far, that there's going to be like multiple playable characters this time.
Right. It's a
I
couple.
would prefer it to be more like Red Dead Redemption 2, where just your overall morality or the choices you make throughout the game just decide that ending for you, as opposed to like, here's three options and one's clearly the one that we want you to pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to GTA 6. It is looking a lot like that thing is going to get pushed to 2027. So.
Maybe, but I don't know because I've been watching not actually watching, but I like the internet and one of the Take-Two investor call or whatever, where they're saying no, we're locked in for November and advertising will start this summer. So I think we'll know after May because they have another investor call in May. The game was originally obviously slated for last year, the end of last year, and then it got pushed to May, then it got pushed to November. So we'll see. I think after May, they're sort of locked in, or they'll push it from that point.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing enough like actual gameplay to think that they're going to get that knocked out by May. I'm kind of being pessimistic about it at this point, which I'm fine with. Give me a good game. As long as they give me as long as the game comes out and it's good, I won't mind that I've waited for it for so long. But
very true.
God, we've talked about this so many times on the show. When did 5 come out?
2013, I think. It was like October or something, November.
Yeah,
Forget.
we're almost 15 years, 15 years in sequel time for a AAA game is kind of crazy. But they do put out quality, and you did get Red Dead Redemption 2 in between there. So I give Rockstar a little bit of a break because they did give us Red Dead Redemption 2, after. I think a lot of people forget about that. Red Dead Redemption 2 on its own is one of the best games of all time.
Yeah.
So
That's going to be on my list of games coming up soon to finish, because I never finished Red Dead 2 either. Not that there's another sequel to Red Dead coming, and I definitely played all the way through Red Dead, which I love that game, and I just need to sit down and finish Red Dead 2 at some point.
So, spoiler alert, 3 is in pre-production, so there will be a third.
All right.
There's not been anything. There's no trailers or anything announced, but it was confirmed that it is in pre-production. So probably as soon as they finish 6,
they'll be going full force, but we won't see Red Dead 3 until at least 2030, let's say 2035. Yeah, something like that.
at this rate.
Before we get started on today's story, though, I did also want to mention, because I think you talked about it last week or a couple weeks ago, that movie Begonia with Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. And I sat down and watched that on your recommendation, and holy crap, that was a great movie. I really enjoyed it.
It's one that I talked about, but I talked about it in a way that I didn't want to give anything away about it.
And I don't want to ruin it for anyone out there that might be listening and going, "Oh, I haven't seen that." I'm not going to say anything. I was talking to my wife about it. She hasn't seen it, and I said nothing other than the performances are incredible, and it's worth watching.
Yeah,
I'll watch it again.
yeah, it's one of those ones that I'll definitely strap in and watch again. It's just so good. Jesse Plemons is incredible in it. Emma Stone's performance is incredible in it. It's visually stunning. A really neat story that I didn't see it going the way it was. That's about all I will say without giving anything away.
Exactly. Some of those without saying, but you know what I'm talking about, being that we both seen it. Those in between moments where it cuts to that still that you see, and then it has like a I think it's a date on it, and you see the image, and I'm like, what is he trying to say with that? But it's really interesting. It's sort of a commentary on society in a way. But anyway, not to go too deep on that, because I don't want to ruin anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say if it was my favorite movie of last year, but it's got to be close. It's either one or two. It's either that or Sinners, and they both are incredible. So if that gives anyone the nudge to go watch it, if you're just listening to my opinion on things and go like, I kind of like what that guy has to say, check it out. It's worth a watch for sure.
Definitely.
And I think it's on. I paid to watch it, but I believe it is also on Peacock. So there's ways to find that thing online for cheap, or I think I paid, I don't know, I think $6 to rent it on Amazon Prime or something, but it's well worth the price of admittance for that one.
Yeah, it'll be streaming, with no cost very soon, I'm sure, but that's neither here nor there. But I guess we'll get into this this story we're talking about. Again, the title of this book is called Later, which can be kind of confusing when you say it in a sentence, because it almost sounds like you're not saying the title. But this is the third novel written by Stephen King for Hard Case Crime, with Joyland, one that we've already talked about before, and a novel called The Colorado Kid. This book was released in 2021, so it's a fairly new story. It equal parts detective story, supernatural thriller, and coming of age tale. Later is narrated by the protagonist, Jamie Conklin, from the vantage of early adulthood, who at the onset of the story is only 6 years old when it begins. The story is set in the early 2000s through the early 2010s. Jamie lives with his single mom, Tia, a literary agent whose chief client, Regis Thomas, is a best-selling author of popular romance novels. We also learn that Jamie's uncle Harry is in a care home, Tia's brother, with early onset Alzheimer's. That's sort of like the setup for the story. What did you think about this story? I think this wasn't one you've read.
No, and I believe that I like it better than Joyland. I think it does more Stephen King things that I like. So like as far as the true crime stuff goes that I've read so far, because I hadn't read any of these. Actually, no, I believe I had read Joyland, but it had been years ago, back when I used to travel for work. Um, I dug this one way more. So if we're just talking about overall vibe and feel, um, the story to me hits kind of what I want out of a Stephen King book more than like Joyland did.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I know pretty sure that Joyland's got a movie coming sometime in the next couple of years, unless that got canceled. But this one, I haven't heard anything about it coming to the screen in any way. But I feel like it's a very workable story in that way. It's a very visually, like you do get a sense of everything that's happening uh, on the page, and you can just imagine it. I mean, that's something King is so good at uh, with his storytelling. It's just very colorful and very sort of modern storytelling. You know, King has evolved his writing throughout the decades of his career, and this one is. I understand. You know, some people don't like kind of the route Stephen King has sort of like evolved through, or they haven't kind of taken that journey with him. But I really like it. So anyway, continuing here. Early on in the story, it becomes clear that Jamie has the ability to see and speak with the recently deceased, and they even make comments, or Jamie talks about. He's like, "Yes, I can see dead people. No, it's not like the movie with Bruce Willis." So, like, he even addresses it in the story early on. So something that he realizes is that when he speaks to them, because when he's a little kid, dead people don't look like ghosts; they just look like people. And he realizes that at some point that he's talking to dead people, and that they're unable to lie to him. So that information becomes vital to the rest of the story. Quite a few people die in this story. Some decent people, some monsters, and as the years pass, Jamie and his mom are the only two who are aware of his abilities. Uh, Fast forward some years later, and his mom starts a relationship with an NYPD detective, Liz Dutt, and things are going fine with when her primary author that she's an agent for, that kind of pays the bills for them, drops dead of a heart attack, and Jamie's mom reaches out to her girlfriend Liz to rush her and Jamie over to Regis's estate, where she thinks that maybe Jamie can speak with Regis's ghost, getting the details of this final story that he's in the middle of writing, but certainly has not even come close to finishing. So that allows Tia to finish the novel so the agency doesn't go bankrupt, while also convincing Liz of Jamie's supernatural talent. So kind of just a bunch of exposition there, but it's really well written, and I'm just sort of summarizing all that up. A few more years pass, and Tia is washing some clothes one day, and she finds a considerable amount of drugs in Liz's jacket, which leads to their relationship ending naturally. And Liz leaves, but she hasn't forgotten Jamie's ability. And within the next year or so, she reaches out to Jamie, kind of pulls up in a car and has a conversation with him, and then coaxes him to take a ride with her to get his help on this serial killer case, where the killer has already killed himself, but not without leaving a message that's pinned to his body, that there's a one final bomb that would be going off somewhere in the city. So Jamie speaks with this. They track down the killer, his ghost, who, although he can't lie, really doesn't want to tell Jamie where the bomb is, but is eventually remiss to do. That allows Liz to be the hero, stopping this catastrophe from happening. But unfortunately for the character of Jamie, he's stuck with this monster. Terrio is his last name. This character, this monster Terrio, won't leave him alone. He just continues to haunt him. And that's something else that Jamie has noticed with people that die. Most people that die, they just start to fade out. Their voice sort of just becomes less and less. You're not able to hear it. It's almost like someone's turning down the volume. But this thing, it seems that hate and malice has allowed something more sinister to kind of take the place of the spirit that was this man, an evil man, but kind of just filling his interior with a different presence, which Jamie describes what he sees as a deadlight, which for anyone that's read it, this is directly a plot point of it, the deadlights, and certainly the character of Terrio, as we find out through the story, is something akin to what it is, some sort of maybe extra dimensional being. You could call it a demon if you want, but that certainly seems to be the case. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the initial plot point about them finding the kind of her exposing her son to some extent, I wasn't the biggest fan of. Just from the standpoint, it seemed like, now one other person knows about this gift, and it kind of is set up in a way that it's going to get used at some point in the future. So that and it's kind of doing it to save your own skin in a way that felt gross, but characters are supposed to be flawed, as with Tia to some extent. But when it becomes this police investigation, it sucked me back in. I was like, okay, so it's going to be used for this, I love the tie-in with it and the deadlight, and the idea that most ghosts, once they tell their truth and they kind of are done with their business, they just fade away and disappear. Whereas this guy was a terrible person in real life, so apparently he's going to be a terrible spirit as well. And then just the way that Jamie has to deal with this, and the fact that this is brought on to him kind of unwilling, like he doesn't want this gift. He didn't want to really be part of this investigation per se. And I think that there's a lot of meat there that they do a good job of exploring as we build up to him trying to get rid of this deadlight. But yeah, Jamie is a very, to me, like, lovable character, but very, very trying to think of the best way to put this, like
Naive,
right? Like, and you can kind of see that, like, his gift kind of, it helps others in some ways, but it also brings this danger to himself constantly, and that's kind of his entire character. But yeah, it's kind of a wild ride, like, once you get to this as he gets a little older with this investigation and stuff, it gets kind of crazy. But the whole way that they go about his gift emerging, because we didn't really talk about that, is I thought that was really interesting, where he tells his mother where their neighbor's deceased wife hid her wedding rings and stuff like that, like the slow buildup of like how they start to understand, or his mother starts to understand his abilities. I thought that was very well written.
As much information as I'm giving you guys, as we're giving you guys about this story, there is so much more detail that it would just be too much for me to just write this whole thing out. I'd read the book or listen to it if you want this whole thing, because it's worth the read. I really like this one. But
yeah, and I think it's cool that they tied it into the true crime series with this investigation, and then that kind of builds to Act 3, which we're about to get into with Jamie. But yeah, it's the whole time I just kind of feel bad for Jamie in this, in a way, because it's like he seems like a really nice person or nice kid who's just much like Danny in The Shining, which you alluded to at the beginning, who's like, he's just a normal kid, dude. He's not asking for any of this. He's not asking for the shine.
Nah, that's the thing with gifts, is that you get them, and then sometimes they're not a gift, but they're a curse. But I think that, as we find, he does wield it in ways that, for better or worse, that he learns to use it to grow up anyhow. So kind of just continuing the story, Jamie obviously is contending with this Terrio thing, and just constantly messing with his daily life, just showing up and not necessarily, like, just sort of in the background, harassing him by being present, and making, like he's in a test at school in a classroom and looks out the window, and that's the other thing about Terrio, is that he unalives himself with a gun to the head. So that's something that's visually, people appear as they are at the moment of death. So if you die of a natural cause, heart attack or something, you just look like a person. But if you do something like that, you look like exactly that at the moment of death. So he's very disturbing to look at. And anyhow, so Jamie keeps this information to himself. He doesn't want to worry his mother, but eventually he needs to get this off his chest, because it's not getting better, and this this ghost is just haunting him. So he does confess this problem to a mentor and former neighbor, Mr. Burkett, who is the one that you were talking about, whose wife passed away and Jamie talked to, and the rings and everything. But although Mr. Burkett is a man of education, he's a professor, and he doesn't, like, exactly in the literal sense believe Jamie's story, but he does give Jamie some useful advice and explains this ritual, which again ties into the ritual of Chud, or Chud, which eventually or essentially is a battle of wits with an entity. So if you've read it, the Deadlights and the Ritual of Chud are elements of that story. Jamie manages to best Terrio and forces him into submission, where he can no longer haunt him, but remains at his beck and call. If he calls on him, then Terrio must appear. So more years go by. Now Jamie's in high school. He's walking home again from school one day, and Liz shows up once again, but now she's no longer a police detective, and she's developed a really bad drug habit. She doesn't coax him into the car; she forces him into the car and takes him on a joyride several hours away from his home, to this drug kingpin's home, where she has this drug lord bound to a bed. And when they get there, Liz, she takes Jamie into the bedroom, and he's confused why he's there. He's like, this guy's alive. And she's like, I can fix that, and probably kills this drug lord, and forces Jamie to question the spirit of the drug lord as to where all the pills are hidden. Drug lord leads Jamie to a hidden room, where it turns out that there aren't that many drugs to be had. Liz just becomes enraged, because she was convinced, when she had the drug lord bound and alive, he was lying to her, and now he can't lie to Jamie. So anyway, she becomes so angry. Jamie's forced to call on that deadlight thing to stop her from killing him. and the demon kills Liz, and Jamie manages to drive it away once again and calls the police in his return home to his mom, which you'd think would be, sort of like a nice, neat, tidy little wrap up to the story. But then we catch up at the end of the story to Jamie in his current age that he's been telling the story from, as a college student, early 20s. He gets a call from his mom that Uncle Harry has died of pneumonia. So he takes a bus ride to be with his mom, to wrap up his uncle's final affairs. And while he's there, he sees the ghost of his Uncle Harry. And it just occurs to him, because he never knew who his dad was. And he asks, "Did you know my dad?" And the ghost of Harry says, "I did." And when he asks him who he was, he's shocked to find out that it was Harry, his, biological uncle, or his mom's brother. And he doesn't ask any more questions, and also doesn't talk to his mom about this. But the thing that troubles him isn't the incest, but the fact that his father had early onset Alzheimer's. And it may also be something that he has to contend with. And he knows that there's a test that he can take to see if he has the gene for it, but decides that that can wait until later. But it's sort of a weird ending that's like a, I don't know, uncomfortable, but also in a way like, almost everyone's had that moment where when you grow up and it's like things aren't the way you thought they were, as a kid. Like the reality of life is sometimes more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, this ending goes off the rails for me a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could have wrapped it up with the drug lord, like you said. That would have been the nice pretty bow ending, but then that again wouldn't really be Stephen King, would it? So we get the story of incest, and I think the idea here is that, is it possible that this gene is what also allows him to communicate with the dead in this way, and then that in itself is going to come to an end with Alzheimer's, right? So I think that's what it was going for. It's not that clearly laid out. I do like tagging it with "it can wait until later," which ends up being the name of the book. But
there's a lot of that in the story too, where it's like he's, just sort of like telling the story, and then he says, and later on, oh, there's that word again. It's like there's a reason that the story is called that.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing about this is that the uncle, I didn't think was featured enough in the story to get this big of a part in the ending.
True. I mean,
it feels out of nowhere. Like when you get to the ending, you're like, what?
Right.
It's jarring for sure if that was the response that was trying to be elicited. But
it feels like King knew what he was going to do with that. And so he needed to set up the story at the beginning with that character being somebody that he introduces, but as a way as to not like have to have that character be a part of the story. He is essentially an invalid, in a home. So there's no need for any more. Okay, we know who this character is. He's the brother. He's got Alzheimer's. Moving on. But unfortunately, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but also like King does that, like look at the ending of it, with the with the kids. And I mean that's a whole nother story. But
yeah, I mean, it's still open to criticism, right?
absolutely. That King goes where he wants with his stories, and sometimes they're to very dark or uncomfortable places that are real, but also like, yeah, you don't have to do that in the story, but hey, it's his story to tell. So
I think if they would have done more with the uncle character, the ending wouldn't have been as jarring. As instead of just setting him up as the character they did, who just kind of has no point in Jamie's life, really. He's just like, yeah, your uncle, he's in this hospital. That's pretty much the gist of what we get about him. That the mother doesn't even really talk about it that much. So like if we
Right.
could have gotten just some more information, or I mean, it is a detective novel after a true crime novel to some extent. So even if those little hints were there, then at least there would have been a payoff. If you're like, man, something's weird about this uncle character, I think would have played a little better for me in the ending. And honestly, everything else about this I liked more than Joyland, but the ending
Right.
is off the rails.
Yeah, that's fair. And that, having just reread this story, I just happened to jump on the internet and I was reading the comments section just to see what other people thought of the story. And it seemed like a lot of people really didn't like this one. And that's fair. It may be the fact that there's so many plot points to contend with, or that the novel deals with ugly subject matter like suicide, incest, drug addiction. But even with that said, I really enjoyed this story. I don't think it's King's finest work by a long shot, but it is good storytelling, and it's worth a read. You won't find me on this podcast telling you not to read a Stephen King book because I love them all to varying degrees. So my Bachman score for this story, I'm going to give it a 6.75 out of 10.
And I can't remember what I gave Joyland, so I'm gonna go. I think I gave it a 7, so I'm gonna go with like a 7.1. It would have been higher without the ending, but I really enjoy. I think that there is a great book in here with if it was fleshed out a little bit more, or if the ending wrapped up a little differently. But it's still a really good read. If you've never picked it up before, like me, I would recommend checking it out. It's better than a lot of other things out there. I will say that. So it has that going for it. But yeah, it's much like you said. It's it's a King book. We're not, the whole podcast is about reading this stuff. And if I have to read it, you should read it too. No, no, it's worth a read for sure.
Yeah. So I guess before we wrap this up, if we want to give our socials, where can the people find you online?
Yeah, it's Christopher.r.patton on Facebook and Christopher.r.patton on Instagram. Also, www.boinkstudios.com, where all of the podcasts of the Boink family can be found. Just recently did 6M with Tom, where we went over Princess Bride. We talked about some Batman. We talked about all sorts of things on there that we didn't expect to talk about while starting with Princess Bride. But it was a fun time. And obviously, Tom Clark's main event, and race sports and slams, and in the Patton report. New Patton report just released, where I go into more detail about 1000X Resist and Dead Static Drive. So you guys always get kind of a little bit of a spoiler before I put out the full things that I'm going to be talking about on the Patton report. But we talk about that, and we talk about the Pokemon 30th anniversary and the new Pokemon theme park, and upcoming releases for the new year. So it's a packed episode as well.
Nice. If you're looking to find me online, my Facebook, Christopher Clawson, Instagram, Chris_Clawson 1982. And I guess that's it. So I guess wrapping it up here, whether it's a dead guy on a park bench or a hungry deadlight from another dimension, King reminds us that growing up is its own kind of horror story. And that's the long and the short of it. Jamie Conklin learned the hard way that when you ask the dead for the truth, that you might not like the answers you get. And some secrets are meant to stay buried. But of course, here in Bachman's basement, we always dig a little deeper. So until next time, keep your eyes open and maybe keep the lights on. We'll see you later.